So in today's video, I want to show you, let's say, a small trick for the grid, and it may not make sense in the beginning, but later on it hopefully does. And we want to misuse some of the modules inside of the grid. So let's begin here with the segments module. And we all know this is kind of an envelope generator, and you usually use this to modulate something. But we want to misuse this today. And to start, we switch this here to one-shot mode. We also enable bipolar mode, and we disable here the smoothing. And inside here of this editor, we go down to 2 to 4 and to use here a triangle. And we then just draw in here basically a waveform, a cycle. So let's actually only use here one dot in the middle. So this one here, this goes with the curvature to minus 75, no, 75. This goes to minus 75. This one goes to 75. Also minus 75%. And we have basically a sine waveform, right? So now you can say, why do we want to do this in segments? Because we have here, let's say, a scroll, right? That's perfectly fine for drawing in some kind of cycle, right? The problem is, or it's actually not the problem. The thing is, with this editor, here, the grid is slightly different than here. Here, we can zoom out. Right, you can see we have here one cycle, 0, 1, and then it goes beyond 1, and then we have 2, 3. You can't do this here. You can't zoom out. You basically are stuck with this cube of drawable space. So that's the difference why I'm using scroll. So I'm using not scroll, I'm using segments for this, right? So I'm drawing in here basically a waveform, and we can zoom out by just holding down Control, and we can basically move around here by holding down the Alt key on my keyboard. I can also increase this here a bit. And yeah, instead of just using this as a waveform, we can just continue and do this. So we can go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Let's do some more here. And maybe that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's enough maybe for now. So maybe you can already see where this is going. We can select all of these here and say 75. And we can select all of these. Let's say 75. Top ones also. Minus 75. So now we have basically a waveform in here, right? So with this waveform in here, there's no problem. We want to play this back at a certain pitch. And we only have here, let's say, minutes, seconds, milliseconds, bar, half note, and so on. So all of these ones here, down here, are basically tied to the BPM in the transport. So when I change the BPM, I basically change the playback speed of the segments. So we are stuck here with minutes, seconds, and milliseconds, and this is perfectly fine. So let's go to seconds here, because now we can calculate the playback speed with this by just using what it's called the wavelength. So basically, how long should it take to play back one cycle to get a certain pitch? And we can do this here also inside of the grid, or we can calculate this inside of the grid. Let's use here a pitch knob. So we want to play this back here, maybe at G0. And then we use here this one. It goes from notes, converts notes to hertz. Let's use a readout here. You can see now here G0 is basically 49 hertz. Okay, so this is what this module gives us. So you can see already by just touching a few modules and trying to misuse them, we learn a lot actually about the grid. So, but I don't need hertz, I actually need seconds or milliseconds. So I need the wavelength basically. And hertz is more or less like one cycle, one period per second. Okay. So we can use here this module called reciprocal. I think that's how it's pronounced. Is basically here using 1 and then dividing by the input we are giving this, right? So we basically saying 1 divided by 49. That's what we do basically here. Let's go into this. And what we get from this is basically here 0.020. And this is actually seconds. This is the wavelength in seconds. So when we pull this down here to all the way down, it's actually exactly 0.02 seconds. We play this back at exactly this frequency of this note. And hopefully I can check this here. Let's use a sine. And let's use the input here. Use an oscilloscope. Let's use pitch. And maybe use an AD here. Retrigger this. And then go in here. Let's retrigger this here and see if it fits kinda. I probably also have to use an AD here. And then zoom this out a bit. Oh, that's the wrong thing, I see. We go into this and then maybe zoom in here. So yeah, you can see it's kind of the same frequency. Maybe I have to use a gate here also to just stop this from drawing. Yeah, you can see it's kind of the same frequency, but we have a different phase here. The sine actually starts here at the 0 or -1 at -1, and segment starts here at 0. So the only sine I know that starts in 0 inside of the grid is actually here the wavetable, or this wavetable standard 4 preset, right? It starts also here in the midpoint. So now you can see we have basically the same phase. It's actually I can't zoom in, sadly. But you can see it's kind of really the same phase, and we have the same frequency here. So with this, we can basically use the segments here as a wave player, or as a sample shot player, kind of, even though it's just made for envelopes. So now you would ask probably why you want to use segments as a wave player. Why not use, let's say, sampler, right? This big thing here. So the idea was, for me at least, this one is pretty big, right? It takes up a lot of space. And most of the times when I use the sampler inside of the grid, I just use it for rim shots, or maybe a kick transient, or a snare sound, or something like this, right? And this is something you can actually draw inside of segments here if you want to. We can also use this here as an output, maybe. Put your limiter on the end. Just to make everyone happy, you know? We use an audio output here. So we can just use the signal basically here from the segments going into the AD, then volume shape this here with the AD and then go out. You can hear we have just a normal sine wave basically playing from the segments. So maybe just delete this here. I just want to show you basically that it's exact, or that it's basically the same. So now that we have this, we can, instead of playing, or we can maybe save this then as a preset, as a curve preset, and recall it later on if you just need a sine. And like I said, you can calculate basically here any note. We can also go here to A0 or maybe C1. So we need to go down actually here, but we need to go to milliseconds. It doesn't go lower than 0.02 hertz. now we can type in here 50 milliseconds. Right, and then you have the pitch of C1, or you go back to G0 here, which is 20 milliseconds. Or you go down to seconds, and then you have to pull this down to 0.02, right? So seconds and milliseconds, the difference is basically 1000. So to make this clear here, we can also multiply this value with a constant of 1000. And then we get basically here milliseconds, and this is seconds. So G0 is basically 0.02 seconds or 20 milliseconds. And here we have also some floating point numbers, I don't know, or floats after the dot here. Okay, so this is how you can calculate this here if you want to. So again, now we have basically here multiple periods, right? It's basically a wave file now. So we can do some things with this, because this is actually the interesting part. Because this you can draw basically in your sample, right? It's not just you draw in your oscillator with a period or a cycle, just one wave cycle. You draw in basically, or you can draw in a sample. So now you can say, okay, we have here basically one node, and this node is decided by the playback speed. In our case here, it's G0. But we can also say, let's increase here actually the snap, or double the snap. Here we have 2, 4, right? So now we go to 4, 4. And we can go back here to this triangle. Sadly, it would be nice to have actually here also a sign or a rounded shape instead of just these edged shapes here. So now we can say we just double the frequency here in this one, right? So up, down, right? So we have doubled the frequency here, which means this is actually, instead of G0, we play here G1. Okay, so we can also double here, something like this. And then we can say we double this again by 8. And now we go down here. Let's go back to 8. I need to draw slower. It's down, up, down, up, down. Something like this. And in the beginning here, we can maybe draw in some random stuff. Maybe zoom in a bit here, select this, and use the value and use a bit of chaos to actually draw in some kind of shape for a kick drum. So this is the idea here. So draw in this. Select this, minus 75. And the next idea I had basically was, would be actually nice to drag in some samples, some wave files into this envelope. But it's not working, sadly. What would be nice actually if you could just drag in some kick drum samples into the segments here and use it as a waveform. Minus 75, okay, that's that. Oh, we also need this here. So yeah, first feature request would be actually let me draw some shapes here, some rounded shapes, or different shapes, more shapes. And second one would be, why not let me drag in some short samples, percussion sounds here, to use it as a segment shape. So now we have this. Let's see how this sounds. Hey, it sounds like a kick drum. So if you want, if you want to get rid basically of this AD, you can also draw in here the volume shapes, right? So you can say, I want to pull this down. Maybe can I select everything here? Yeah, probably. It's a bit hard to select sometimes.
And then you can say value here and then scale. So you can scale it down, something like this, right? Or you want to have here the fundamental of the kick drum a bit louder, and you want to pull down here, let's say, basically this. Or it's very hard to find here the right places sometimes. Yeah, let's shape this down. Scale, something like this, right? So the fundamental is much louder, and the pitch envelope here is a bit quieter, and the kick in the beginning is louder than this one, right? Maybe you can also scale this down here a bit. Scale, something like this. So my idea for this is I always wanted to have something inside of the grid which is persistent. So the segments thing, what you have in here is persistent. And I don't want to use the sampler, because with the sampler you can only load in a sample and that's it. You can't record, you can't draw in, or you can't change the sound in there, you can't edit, right? And the recorder is, yeah, you can record up to 6 seconds, but you can't change the playback speed. It's not persistent. So we have a lot of different options inside of the grid, but each of these devices is basically missing something. So here you can load and play back and have all the options for playback speed and playback positions. Here you can record, but you can't change the playback speed and you can't save. And here you can edit and it's persistent, but you can't record and you can't load in samples. So this is basically the downside of Bitwig or the grid in general, that you have not an option for everything and all these different tools that just can do one thing but not the other. It's a bit, yeah, annoying, but it is how it is, right? So the big benefit of the segments now is that you can edit the waveform. You can draw in something in here. You can say, I want to change basically the attack phase here. Another interesting benefit of this method is that this waveform is kind of rock solid. You can influence it. It's static. You can mix and match it with other sounds, maybe with the bass sound, and can align basically here the phase perfectly if you want to. You just can draw it basically in. And then maybe correct it here with the playback speed. And you can also save this as presets. So I've already made here some presets, like I said here, the sine wave. For instance, here a different kick drum, right? Sounds like this, maybe. Use a different playback speed here. So this is a kick drum. Then I have something different here. So this one here, these kick transients, is basically how I started to experiment with this. Because inside of the grid, sometimes you want to make kick drums, right? And you don't want to waste a lot of space with a lot of modules and want to create pitch envelopes and so on. So I thought, maybe it's a great idea to actually persist this inside here, the segments, with some kind of preset. So when you create kick drums, you don't need to draw in the complete kick drum in here, but you can also combine. Sometimes you just need a click transient right in the beginning of your kick drum. So you can do this with something like this. So here we have this, and then we mix this together here. Something like this. Let's see how this sounds. Or maybe use this as a phase distortion. Right, so this was basically the idea, boiling down a lot of modules just into one segments module with some presets here I can load. And then when I load these presets, I can change these presets and, you know, change them to my liking, or so it fits the track, also it fits the other sounds here I'm using. So this was the idea. And then, yeah, it became basically bigger and bigger. I thought, why not just create the whole kick drum inside of here, right? So this was my thinking. So yeah, you can basically create some nice click sounds here for kick drums or for some percussion sounds in here. And you can create whole kick drums in there if you want to. And usually when you make some dance floor music, you usually just use 1 or 2 different kick drums, and they have a slightly different attack phase, attack sound. But most of the times you are stuck with the same kind of sound. So it's maybe a good idea to explore this a bit more, yeah. At least for me, I try to explore this a bit and see how far this gets, and yeah, use the segments here more like a sample player or for kick drums or percussion sounds inside of the grid. So I just want to share this basically with you, my idea here. You can also save these things here and use it inside of Scroll. Like I said in the beginning, you can also load this in here. Of course, it looks like this. But yeah, with the Scroll, it's basically, like I said, the editor here, you can't edit this that good. It's much better inside of segments because you can zoom in here and you can see the different yeah, segments here, and can extend and basically the kick drum. Oh, this is actually the first kick drum, right? Yeah. So in here you can see this is basically the first period, the second, third, and so on. So you can extend here and make this longer and longer. You can make a pretty long wave file in here if you want to. The only downside is, like I said, you can't load in wave files. You have to draw it in for yourself and then save it as a preset. Maybe some coder can come up with something where we can convert wave files to curve files, but I'm not that smart, or I haven't had the time yet. But maybe it's a good idea to do this if not Bitwig comes up with a solution. Would be actually great to just drag in wave files here into this window. But yeah, just some random ideas. That's it. I hope it helps. I hope you learned something new. Let me know in the comments down below. And also please leave a thumbs up, would be nice. And also subscription, of course. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.